2 foxes, 1 cage. It's chapter 5, 2 foxes in 1 cage. Quick summary, in the previous chapter, Plucky and Jinx got captured. Dash chased after them, got into a truck, and then she got her ear caught. So, it's time for us to continue the journey of a lifetime with Chapter 5, 2 foxes in 1 cage. So, let's do this thing. The truck continued onwards, now bolting down a motorway, taking the prisoner foxes to what would be the last place they ever knew. Dash's ear was still stuck on the broken piece of metal. Slowly and painfully it gouged further as she tried to break free. She was reduced to silent tears of anguish. But at least she was on the truck, and she would get free. She would save Plucky. The hair was out of view of the cages that held the captive foxes, behind the litter of cardboard crates. Further in the back of the truck, Plucky, unaware of Dash's rescue attempt, still tried desperately to push the cage door open. Repeatedly and determinedly, he rammed his head into it, much to the annoyance of the other prisoners. "Or will you just give it up, you dumb cub?" An older male red fox shouted out at Plucky. "No! I'm not staying in this cage any longer!" Plucky shouted back each time he paused, ramming into the cage again and again. "It's pointless, you know. These cages are designed to keep creatures like us completely secure." Another male fox blurted out. "There isn't any cage that can hold me!" Plucky boldly responded, as he rammed his head into the door again, but in his heart he knew it was already a lost battle. "He's right, Plucky. Just give it up. You'll give yourself a headache," Jinx calmly said, while still looking down into a pit of despair. They were the first words to leave her mouth since they'd been trapped in the cage. Plucky then stopped, leaning his head against the cage door, exhausted. "I'm pretty sure that's the least of our worries," he replied quietly, breathing heavily. Jinx just stayed quiet, and was then alerted to the cage next to theirs. The fox in there was only a young cub, whimpering in the corner. "Hey," Jinx whispered to the cub. "You okay?" The young cub looked up at Jinx and nodded before he spoke. "I'm okay. I'm just scared. What are they gonna do to us?" Before Jinx could speak, the older red fox bellowed out, terrifying the young cub. "I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to kill us, and skin us, and wear our fur for themselves." "Hey, shut up!" Plucky shouted at the fox. "Where's your sense of compassion?" It died long ago, cub. That's why everyone calls me Collis." Plucky just huffed at the fox in annoyance and turned to look out the cage at the back of the moving truck, until he spoke again. "What happened to you and her, then?" Collis rudely questioned. "You two get hungry macing?" He then laughed mockingly, but was immediately silenced when Plucky and Jinx both growled ferociously at him. "Sorry I asked," Callus spoke again sarcastically. "I watched Jacksepticeye videos on several occasions, and I cannot do an Irish accent to save my life. I need more vocal training someday." Plucky returned to looking out the cage and sighed. There was a chance Collis was right. Plucky then turned his head to look at Jinx, and turned back, considering if he should say how he felt about her. What did he have to lose if they were going to be killed? I guess now is as good a time as any, he muttered to himself, and turned to talk to Jinx. There was a pained look on her face. Hey, how are you feeling? Jinx looked at him, drawing herself out of her pit of despair, though still keeping the obvious look of despair. Like an idiot, she spoke. Yeah, I know the feeling. Plucky and Jinx shared a gloomy chuckle. Look, I'm sorry about last night. Jinx started, referring to their argument and their literal fight. I'm sorry too, Plucky quickly replied. All seems petty now, really. Jinx just gave a disheartened nod. They both looked down gloomily, and there was a moment of silence between them. Nobody spoke, and only the muffled rumbling engine of the truck that contained them could be heard. Plucky looked back at the vixen. Hey, seeing as these could be the last few hours we have left alive, can I ask you something? Plucky asked calmly. Jinx just nodded and looked down again. What's your real name? What? The vixen responded almost harshly. When we first met, when I asked you your name, you seemed very awkward and you said everyone calls you Jinx. You didn't say it was your name. Should there be a difference? It's only fair I should know who you really are. You know who I am, Plucky reasoned with the vixen, who just stayed quiet and looked down. There was a long pause before Plucky spoke again. I'm sorry, you don't have to say if you don't... Scarlet. Huh? My name is Scarlet. The vixen looked up, giving Plucky a small smile, who returned the look. Ooh. Lovely name. But why is she named Jinx? That because of... Plucky began. My fur is a very vibrant scarlet red. Yeah, Scarlet explained. Oh, scarlet red fur, scarlet red fur, scarlet red fur. All of the previous chapters that said scarlet red fur were referring to Jinx. Oh my goodness, what if it was like clever foreshadowing to what her true name? 14 Sleepyhead 09, just keep on surprising, dude. Scarlet? Plucky wondered to himself. If you don't mind me saying, it's a much nicer name than Jinx. You really think so? Yeah. How did you even get to being called Jinx, anyway? Because I am a Jinx. I'm nothing but bad luck. To myself. And everyone around me. Scarlet paused and let loose a tear. Everywhere I go, everyone I meet, just gets hurt, one way or another. Everyone just called me a Jinx, and soon the nickname just stuck and I ran with it. She paused again and took a deep breath, trying to hold back more tears. I haven't been called by my real name for a very long time. If it makes you feel any better, I don't think you're a Jinx. Plucky comforted the vixen. Really? If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be in this cage. Scarlet stated. Hey, I'm the one who followed you in here. And to be honest, I wouldn't have left you if it was just you in here, Plucky said calmly. He and Scarlet smiled at each other. Although both knew saying these words almost meant nothing, unless it could get out of the cage that enclosed them. At that point, though, the truck stopped with a sudden jolt, knocking them into each other. The fox and vixen stared into each other's eyes for a long time, gazing into the pools of amber they both had. Despite the company, Plucky and Scarlet were lost in the moment, before their connection was abruptly broken by the truck moving off again, and a sudden thud occurred at the back of the truck. Plucky looked around to see the culprit of the thud. He found out it was Dash, who had fallen over flat on her back, having tripped and fallen while clambering over the litter of boxes. Dashy! Plucky cried out. His tail swished freely and his ears perked up high, overjoyed to see his best friend. Oh, hey, Dash replied, picking herself up off the floor. Oh, a hare! Collis said, licking his lips, having noticed Dash. A fitting last meal. Dash backed up in fear of the other fox. Hey, if you want to eat her, then call yourself a cannibal, because you'll have to eat me first. Plucky scowled at the older fox, shutting him up, before he continued talking to Dash. How did you get here? I ran. The whole way? No, not the whole way, silly. I jumped to the back of the truck, but I caught my ear on some sharp bit of metal. Dash then showed Plucky the small gash through her ear that still bled slightly. I was stuck there for God knows how long, and you'd know I don't like pain. You okay then? Plucky asked worriedly. I'm fine, Dash reassured with a smile. Now I've got to get you and Jinx out of there. Don't call her that anymore. Her name is Scarlet. Plucky and Scarlet looked at each other and smiled again. Dash looked between them a little confused before she spoke. Okay. That's a much nicer name than Jinx. I know, that's what I said, Plucky remarked cheerily. Now come on, I'll get you out of there. Dash hopped up to the cage and found the catch holding it shut again. This time she pulled on it with all her might before it sprang back and she fell over. Plucky burst right out of the cage, relieved to be free again, and instantly helped Dash up. She then gave him a hug as he nuzzled her head. Aww. This isn't the first time I thought I was about to lose you, you know. Dash whined into Plucky's fur. I know. I'm sorry. Stop making me worry about you, okay? Dash continued as she let Plucky go, looking up at him. No promises, but I'll be more careful. Plucky smiled at her and turned to see Scarlet come out the cage, and also give Dash a nuzzle. Thanks for getting us out, Dash. And I'm sorry for the things I said last night, Scarlet apologized. Can you forgive me? Yes, I can forgive you. I know you probably didn't mean it. You were just mad. Hey, you know it's all well and good that you guys are happy, if not weird-looking family again. But are you going to let us out too? The unknown red fox called out. As long as you promise not to hurt the hare, Scarlet announced. Yeah, sure, we won't hurt her, the fox responded, and the young cub just gave a small nod. Fine, Collis also responded. Plucky, Scarlet, and Dash then went over to free the other captives, and they didn't waste time in bursting out the cages. Ah! Freedom! Colin spoke to himself, reveling, as was everyone else, in his freedom. All of a sudden, the truck then emitted an unhealthy shudder, and it began to slow down. The group of foxes and the hare could hear what sounded like the two humans arguing in the front of the truck, and then the whole thing came to a halt as it rumbled over some rough ground. They quickly glanced outside the back. It was dark outside, almost pitch black, and they could barely see beyond the light emitted from the vehicle lights. They all knew now was their chance to escape, but before they could, they also heard the driver's seat door open forcefully. I gave you one thing, Matt. One thing. I told you to fill up the tank when we were at the services and you couldn't even do that. The larger human named Rick shouted at the other. Honestly, I don't know what I pay for you for. You pay for my marksman services. You can't aim a gun to save your life. The other human named Matt, who was still in the passenger seat, responded jokingly. Oh, shut the up! Language! Watch your freaking language! Will you relax? There's a reason we brought the reserve tank for something like this. Lucky for you. Need a hand? I think I could pump petrol myself, thank you, Rick replied sarcastically. Rick then came round to the back of the truck and dropped the tailgate with a loud clunk. Get back, Plucky whispered to the others, and they all hid behind the litter of boxes. Rick then reached into the back and pulled the large cylindrical tank out to lean off the tailgate, and then reached back in to get a long thin pipe. It was clear this was the most nervous a group of animals had ever been in their lives, but Plucky didn't waver and took charge. We need to all push past him together. He looked back at them all. Ready? Can I rip his face off first? Colin asked cruelly. Whatever, Plucky replied, before looking back at the truck. Okay, on 3, 2... Okay, on 3. 1, 2... Plucky was about to say 3 before the young cub's nerves got the better of him, and he ran out alone. No, wait! Scarlet called after the cub. The young fox cub ran and jumped out past Rick, startling him. Gah! What the... Matt, get the shotgun! One of the foxes escaped! The other human scrambled out of the car almost instantly, weapon in hand, and ran out to the back of the truck. The others could see him take aim with a shotgun and fired a couple of seconds after. A loud bang erupted and echoed into the distance. Silence fell. What was the young cub named? What was he named? We'll never know. Did you guess it? Rick asked the other human. Yeah, that thing is as dead as a dodo, Matt replied jokingly. Pfft. And you said you don't know what you pay me for. Yeah, shut up. Check all the rest of them, would you? Back in the truck, the animals were stuck in a state of shock. He didn't stand a chance, Scarlet said, horrified. And neither will any of us if we go out one by one, Plucky responded. We have to go. It's now or never, the unnamed fox spoke out. If that one human has a gun, don't run in a straight line. Makes you an easy target, Collis advised. Dash, Plucky turned to look at her. They won't be looking for you, so just run as fast as you can and stay out of sight. Okay, Dash replied worriedly. We all need to run in different directions too, Scarlet added. Okay, this time we do it, Plucky ordered. All of them posed to run. On 3. 1, 2... Plucky quickly paused, taking a deep breath. his heart pounding heavily. Free! The 4 foxes and the hare bounded out of the back of the truck, much to the surprise of the humans. Dash darted off into the darkness to the left, Scarlet behind her. Plucky carried straight on, following the road. The unnamed red fox ran to the right, and Callus, as he promised, had jumped up to attack the smaller human. Matt fell over and dropped the shotgun with the force of the fox jumping at his face. Callus bit and clawed at the human repeatedly and aggressively. Gah! Ah! Matt cried out. Get it off me! Get it off me! Rick dropped the pipe feeding the petrol from the reserve to the main tank, spilling a good amount of it on the ground. In shock, he rushed to help his colleague. He grabbed the fox by the tail and lifted him off Matt. Callus then turned to bite and claw at Rick, but before he could, Rick threw the elderly fox against the truck, and Callus fell to the floor with a whimper and left in a weak daze. Why did I say wink? Rick immediately grabbed the discarded shotgun and fired, point blank at the fox. Matt dragged himself off the ground. There were some significantly deep and bleeding scratches on his face. Give me that! He shouted at Rick, yanking the shotgun from his hands. I'll kill all these damn foxes! So, quick kill count. Young Red Fox Cub 1 and Callus 2. So I'm guessing that's 2 to the count. Alright. The loud crack of the gunshot had caused Plucky to look back in fear. He witnessed the human aim the shotgun to the direction right of the truck, and fired 2 more deafening shots, again echoing loudly across the darkened landscape. Despite aiming into the darkness, he could tell this human was a good shooter. Plucky then decided it was time to run again when he saw the gun being aimed at him. He turned tail and ran, veering through the long grass, faster than he'd ever run before. As he did so, in mortal fear, he waited for the deafening crack and the intense brief moment of searing pain that would end his life. He dared not to look back. He heard it, but the pain never came. Instead, he saw a large tuft of grass and dirt flying into the air beside him, showering him with the displaced earth. The shot had missed, but he wasn't safe yet. He continued onwards, and another booming crack occurred. Do not get Plucky shot, for the love of God, please! Do not have him shot too! Please! Again, nothing happened. He then saw the point of his safety, a wood plank fence. At the speed he was going, he jumped it cleanly, taking cover the other side. He panted heavily and moved slowly along the fence. He heard another shot, and feared who was shot at. Plucky almost fainted with fright when the fence next to him shattered loudly with shards of splintered wood, making one large and several smaller holes. He traveled along the old fence swiftly, looking for his companions. He couldn't see Dash, who had, more than likely, ran off unnoticed further into the moorland. He then saw Scarlet, still running, still in danger, in full view of the truck. No, don't kill Scarlet! Plucky noticed in dread that the human was aiming a shotgun at her. No, don't run in a straight line, girl! Plucky stuttered to himself. He was more than relieved when nothing happened when the human had pulled the trigger. Only a quiet click occurred. Whew! No one else is getting shot today, eh? The man cursed, then lowered the gun and started reloading more shotgun shells underneath it. Oh, come on! Plucky, determined to save her, ran from his cover over towards Scarlet. The human had finished reloading the gun. Plucky looked back to see him take aim. Scarlet, move! Plucky shouted, ramming into the side of the vixen as she ran. Then he heard the sickening, booming crack of the gunshot. And then, nothing. Plucky rolled over on the ground, a ringing in his ears that left him almost deaf. It wasn't until he rolled back onto his front that he felt it. The searing and unmerciful pain, and he screamed out to proclaim it. Scarlet had been pushed right over by Plucky's force, but she quickly got back up. She looked back at him, and her heart sank. Plucky whimpered in agony, helpless on the ground. He had just saved her life, but had been severely wounded. Scarlet knew very well she could easily escape herself now, but she couldn't leave him, not after he just risked his life for her. She looked back at the human aiming the gun, petrified. Time slowed to a crawl to her now, her breath heavy and heart-pounding. She would have savored every one of those breaths, but they were so fast and so full of fear, all she could do was wait for it, knowing these were likely to be her last moments. The human quickly rechambered the shotgun, loading another shot into the barrel while the hot ejected shell, just fired, flew out to the side. The expelled shell flew over the human's shoulder. He knew not where it would land, nor did he care. It fell to the ground and bounced again, then rolled across the exposed soil into the spilled petrol on the floor. It happened instantly. The residual heat from the shell instantly ignited the spilled petrol. In a split second, the fire quickly engulfed the back of the truck as it followed the petrol fumes. It found its way and climbed up the pipe leading to the large reserve tank. It burned so quickly there was barely any time for the two humans to jump to the floor. The fire climbed into the tank, and the heat and pressure buildup was enough to rupture it. The tank exploded with a huge ball of blinding fire and a thunderous explosion that shook the ground like an earthquake. The fire burned and expanded so brightly. It illuminated the landscape with a flush of orange that rivaled a midday summer sun. The shockwave flattened the long grass around the explosion, and the force of it blew Scarlet backwards, knocking her cleanly to the ground. Plucky, in his injured, dazed, half-conscious state, had been waiting for the inevitable second shot that would finish him. But it hadn't come. He was somewhat confused, and managed, with difficulty, to lift his head from the ground to look back at the truck. It was completely in flames, and bits of glass, metal, and burning debris littered the area around it, some of it narrowly missing the pair of foxes. Plucky watched it in his unexplainable state of confusion, mesmerized by the ominous flickering orange that dominated the darkness. With his hearing impaired, he could barely hear Scarlet shouting at him. "Come on, Plucky! Get up! We have to go now!" She was shouting hysterically. She pushed her head underneath his right leg to get him to move. Plucky used what strength he had to lift his injured body off the ground and attempted to walk off. He put his left front leg down, but immediately lifted it up again when the searing pain shot up it, causing him to gasp. He then limped off after Scarlet, who had begun warily walking away, constantly looking back to check on him. The vixen trotted off, the wounded fox limping after her, into the darkness of the moorland and away from the smoldering wreckage of the fox trapper's vehicle. Rick and Matt are dead, and that is 4 more added to the count. Oh my god. At least Plucky's eyes are intact, but now he's been freaking shot. At least he was actually shot saving Scarlet. But what will happen next time? Will he live? I hope he lives. He can't die. Not now, not yet. With that, everyone, that is Chapter 5 done. And until next time, just keep moving forward and remember the oath. Oh my goodness. This is getting insane.